So wait, is that Teatino is a pup? So does that mean Latte is gonna look like her mom when she grows up? Sorry, I just need a minute to process that. Go to the title card. This week, the good old episode buffer returned. Okay, honestly, it makes sense considering we took a break last week, so a bit of a recap would be appreciated by some. Still, I wonder what our heroines did over their New Year's vacation.
Excuse me, what?
Okay, I didn't expect them to publicly reveal themselves off screen, but okay, I'm willing to follow along in spite of that and how weird this mayor dude looks, as long as they don't drop any more big bombshells. Alright, never mind. As soon as they gave Hinata a millennium's worth of tapioca balls, it became clear what was actually going on. Still, a really funny sequence topped off with this. Sorry, just between this and the isekai spider, I just can't get over how great Aoyuki is with her comedic deliveries. Also, yeah, quick anime recommendation for the season. Anyway, she told her friends about her likely fever dream the next day, and while they liked the idea of reforming the generals, I'm pretty sure most of us wouldn't want the viral antagonists to become good guys after 2020, they asked what about the king. Hinata rightfully pointed out that she, and really all of us, know nothing about the dude, even what he really looks like since he's been such an underdeveloped character. Nodoka tried to sketch their final boss, and again, her art skills don't match up with her VA, not unless she was trying to draw a king jellyfish. Meanwhile, in the Byoken Kingdom, Guairar began enacting his latest plan, the first step of which involved removing Shindoinin for a little while. He did this through her greatest weakness, flattery. I didn't think it was possible, but I think we found a bigger simp than Blue in this franchise. His second step involved purposely leaving a portal to their kingdom open within the eyesight of one of the Precures, specifically the most gullible of the team, Hinata. Predictably, she called in the rest of her team, and thankfully, Chiyu pointed out that this was likely a trap. However, they also couldn't deny this was a golden opportunity to defeat King Byoken while he was still not at full power. I will say I kind of like this scene, as it does have our protagonists debating like an actual team, considering all of the pros and cons of their choices. Ultimately though, Nyatran rejected the idea, which makes sense. They can't just go in willy-nilly because that would mean the show's almost over and... Oh shoot, are we getting close to the finale? Because I don't have my usual celebratory rum. Excuse me, I gotta go make a quick market run. But yeah, Hinata of all people was forgoing because... Since when? Yeah, unfortunately, much like the king, this episode is kind of exposing how little they've developed Hinata's character. Not as much as the former's lack of degree, but still not enough that this statement had quite the gravitas that I think they were going for. Now, to be fair, this does seem to be building towards something for the following episodes, so I won't pass judgment just yet, but still, it's not quite that strong of a scene overall. Anyway, Nyatran was ultimately outvoted and forced to go along with his partner's proposal. Thus, our brave protagonists made their way to the final battlefield, with Hinata briefly turning into a giraffe. Seriously, what's going on here? All the while, Guairar had his Keikakudori face on. In the kingdom, Latte of course was in her weakened state since they were surrounded by the Byoken's influence. But fortunately, they had some convenient markers pointing them in the right direction, and yeah, once again, it seemed like an obvious trap that they thankfully pointed out. Though of course there was also the possibility that they were using reverse psychology, so Asumi volunteered to go down the opposite route. That is both kind of hilarious and yet terrifying at the same time. I mean, just look at poor Latte's face, jeez. Thus, they stuck with following the markers, and eventually reached what seemed like the lair of the king. Sure enough, the big face revealed himself, and the two sides proceeded to exposit some very cliched final boss exchanges. Yeah, I honestly get the feeling that they purposely made these lines as cliched as possible, because this just can't be the final battle, so why take it that seriously? Still, the Precure transformed, and okay, I know I used Gygus for the thumbnail, but now this guy is starting to look like Spiritomb. And just like the Pokemon before the introduction of the fairy type, he had no weaknesses and managed to take out Osmi, establishing his dominating power early on in a nicely animated sequence. Unfortunately, this was then followed up with some not so great looking beam spamming from the original trio. Thankfully, the king switched things up with some shadow minions who put up a much better fight, including some Fist of the North starring. The trio tried using their original finishers, but you know, you really shouldn't use those too soon or else. Well, at least we know this guy ain't an anti-spiral. Though, did they kind of use some in the movie? Eventually, all of our protagonists were KO'd, and just like any final boss, the king didn't finish them off when he had the chance, but instead took a minute to gloat. We did get an interesting reveal that the healing animals hid during the initial Byogen invasion on the healing garden. I kind of wish we had got to a full episode where they could have reflected on this, but I guess we only have so many episodes left. Still, we did get a nice moment between the animals and their Precure partners, complete with some excellent music. Seriously, I'm so going to buy the second OST when I get the chance. With that, they got their second win, and the king tried to finish them off with one last blast. The healing animals blocked it while making these faces.
Let me see your war face! Sir, you got a war face?
And with a little boost from Osmi, they managed to reflect his attack, giving them an opening for a big counterattack that finished the king off? Well, that was a bit of an ending, but still, here's to you, Healing Good. And you know what? Thanks for a little over a year's worth of good shows and wait, we're not even into February, are we? Nah, of course, we all know this is far from over, as the episode ended with the appearance of Guaiwaru. This is a bit of an odd one to critique. I mean, honestly, I highly doubt this is the end of the king, though I'm also not denying the possibility. Which, if that is the case, and I'm not saying it is, then honestly, that was a really disappointing final fight with somebody who was built up as much as him. And if it isn't, then, well, it still wasn't that great of a fight, making for a pretty meh episode on its own. While I usually don't like to theorize that much, I will say, based on the following episode titles, unless the king they're referring to is just Guaiwaru, I highly doubt this was the end of the king, and this is all just part of some elaborate gambit by him. And if pulled off right, this could lead to a good twist, as it would also mean he outmatched Guaiwaru's gambit. Yeah, I don't think I'm spoiling anything when I say he was clearly pulling a Starscream. And for someone who's always seemed to be more bronze than brains, it was a good plan. Convince his two biggest adversaries to fight each other. If the Precure won like they did, then he would become king. If the king won, then that's 4 less adversaries he has to worry about, plus he might have been able to finish off the weakened king. He had nothing really to lose and everything to gain regardless of who the winner was. He even seemed to tempt the Cures by closing the game in front of them. That's actually really smart. The Precure themselves falling for his plan was a little questionable, but really, what other options do they have? Their enemy was only getting stronger, and they arguably had reached the pinnacle of their own strength. May as well strike while the iron was hot. That said, the strikes they landed were a bit of a mixed bag. Some of the sequences during this fight looked great, while others, especially the beam spamming, not so much. Though that might have been by design for at least the final attack, just to lure them into a false sense of security. Again, this is an episode where the follow-up will decide my final score, in particular regarding Hinata. She has, unfortunately, remained the most underdeveloped of an otherwise fairly balanced team. But if they take her in directions like, say, having her be responsible for the final arc of this season, then that might very well rescue the character. We'll just have to wait and see. Otherwise, I think the best parts of this episode were Guaiwaru and that opening dream sequence. If you haven't seen it yet, I don't know why you wouldn't. It's been up for about a week now. Get on that, whoever you are. I did a little video where I took a look at the 3 big franchises of toy, which of course includes Precure, the Toy Trinity. Honestly though, I'm just glad you guys are enjoying it and have been able to share your first time experiences with any of these 3 great franchises. And while my next big video is going to be part 1 of my Gold Princess series review, I am also simultaneously working on a certain other review. Yep, but as soon as I upload this, I'm going to go work on my Miracle Leap review. That should be up in the next day or 2. I might have to also delay my usual Dremmy review, but we'll see how time treats us. And until then though, for now my friends, and I didn't say I would need any extra time, damn it!